Welcome everyone. Welcome speakers and attendees to IPMI International Business School CEO Talk. The CEO Talk is a new webinar, part of a new series of webinar at IPMI International Business School. It is a discussion forum where IPMI invites CEOs and captains of industry from Indonesia and beyond to have a discussion with academicians and learners from all over Indonesia and the world on what, why, and how corporate Indonesia is doing things. These discussions will always be exciting because they are relevant and they involve real practitioners and decision makers. I must add, successful practitioners, for they are from companies and leaders of industries of very successful companies in their fields. So to introduce today's program, I'm pleased to introduce to you IPMI International Business School's Executive Director, Prof. Aman Wirakartakusumah, was Indonesia's ambassador to UNESCO and former rector of IPB University, as Prof. Aman is currently also chairman of Engineering Commission of IP, Akademi Ilmu Pengetahuan Indonesia, and president-elect of the International Union of Food Science and Technology. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Prof. Aman Wirakartakusumah. Prof. Aman, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Pak Aldi. Good afternoon, dear participants, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome and thank you for coming to IPMI International Business School webinar series. Today, we have a very special topic that is still in relation with the COVID-19, which has been impacting on every business and society, including food business. Everyone is looking for practical solutions for immediate relief efforts, as well as for long-term recovery strategies. Along with so many issues, sustainable finance is a key part of the solution. Our GDP growth in Indonesia held up better than elsewhere in the first quarter, but this is doubting this resilience will last. The Finance Ministry expects the GDP this year to grow by a meager 2.3%, down from 5.02% last year. This has brought up a very serious issues on resiliency of financing for food business and how can we recover in longer term. In this context, IPMI has designed this webinar to share and to learn, which lead toward solution in recovering our economy. I would like specifically thankful to all the three eminent speakers, Ms. Wendy A, the founder, president director, and CEO of the very famous Sari Roti, Mr. Stephen Lee, the CEO of the PT Sari Melati Kencana, a member of Sriboga Group, and Professor Roy Sembel, Professor Chair of IPMI for Finance and Investment. Your contribution in this deliberation are so important for establishment of sustainable Indonesia food industry. As a business school, IPMI is offering BBA and MBA programs, trainings, and research that also covers issues on food business establishment. I would like to recognize the presence and welcome to Mr. Hadian Iswara and also Mr. Dr. Rinaldi Firmansyah, who are also the key person in industry in Indonesia. And finally, let me thanks again all the panelists, the moderator, Dr. Dery Habir, and the host of this webinar, and all of the IPMI team who have been working very hard to prepare for this webinar. And to all of the participants that I was reported, I think about 681 participants So I think I would like to wish you have a successful webinar, and thank you for all your participation. Thank you. Over.
And
Over to
before we start, can we have the Indonesia Raya? And I would like to ask for all to either stand up or sit up straight, please. Fajri, can you turn on Indonesia Raya for us? Thank you. Now, without further ado, we can start our CEO talk. And I'd like to introduce our moderator for tonight, Dr. Dery Habir, who is one of the founding faculty of IPMI International Business School, and currently is the director for the Case Center. Dr. Dery Habir, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Paldi, and welcome to everybody in this webinar. We will have three speakers. We will start off. Each speaker will be spending about 7 minutes for each presentation. We will start off with Ibu Wendy A, who might need to go a little bit earlier, so we will have her to do her presentation for the 7 minutes, and then we will have question and answers to Ibu Wendy, and then we will go on to the other members of the panel, who are Mr. Stephen Lee and Professor Roy Sembel. So if I can just give a brief introduction of Ibu Wendy Yap. She is the founder, president director, and CEO of PT Nippon Indosari Corpindo Tbk, which produces over 100 varieties of mass market bread throughout Indonesia. So it's very well known. In fact, it's one of those foods that have been well known to be used under emergency conditions, Sari Roti. She started a career in her father's real estate business in the US and returned to Indonesia in the early 1990s to start Wendy's Hamburgers franchise in Indonesia and Hong Kong. I wonder if it was a coincidence or it was a deliberate choice because of the same name of Ibu Wendy and Wendy's hamburgers. So anyway, shall we get on with our program? And the floor is yours, Ibu Wendy.
Okay.
Yep. Up. You're up.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. It is such a privilege and honor to be invited to speak to IPMI. And my old friend, Pa Alwin Arifin, asked me to speak, and I said immediately yes. Unfortunately, I have to leave a little early, but I'm really honored to be here. I want to mention actually that yes, Wendy's Hamburgers, I got the franchise because my father told the founder that my name was Wendy, and the founder said, okay, then you can have the franchise for Indonesia, Hong Kong, and China. My father was very straightforward, frank person, so that's exactly what he told, and that's how I got the franchise. Listening to the national anthem of Indonesia just now touched my heart, because when I started Sari Roti, I wanted to make Sari Roti for the Indonesian people. So actually our logo is Rotinya Indonesia, Satunya Indonesia, Rotinya Indonesia untuk Satu Indonesia and Cinta Indonesia. Okay, so that is exactly our motto. It's all in that national anthem, which I'm very proud, to be as part that Sari Roti is part of Indonesia. COVID-19 hits everyone, but and there is no one in the world that is spared. Not one country in the world is spared. Indonesia, being the 4th largest country in the world, will be hit one of the hardest. However, we were a little late in announcing the lockdown, and for good reasons. I fully understand. I've spoken to a few people in the government, and I fully understand, why they did that. However, because in Singapore and in the other countries, they already started the lockdown and they started the testing. Sari Roti, whenever we had the meetings in February, we were already able to start preparing. We knew that it was going to come, okay? It is not a matter that we're smarter than everyone else. We were just more aware of our surroundings. And for me, being an international traveler, I was just probably much more sensitive to such information. So we started sanitizing, we started, putting different teams to come into the office, on certain days. And we already banned conferences for our staff to go to because we didn't want them to get, the virus. So we started doing that early. So awareness is one of the things that is very important, that was very important for us during the COVID-19 pandemic. Being aware of what's happening in the world and being able to implement systems, the quarantine measures, sanitizing measures much faster. So when Indonesia announced the lockdown on March 17th, the lockdown started March 17th, but they actually announced it earlier. I think it was around March 13th or so. The first thing I did for Sari Roti was actually to look for funding. So what we did was, as much as we are a good company, we are solid, we have good cash reserves, we started looking for credit lines, and we secured it very fast, like within a matter of, I think, 2 days, only because no one else was doing it at that time. Plus, I wanted to secure it so that we were able to have the funding in case we needed to buy extra raw materials, we needed to have extra quarantines. You never know. In a pandemic situation, a crisis situation, the first thing one would look for is always the money. Same as when you run a household, a small company, big company, all the same. You look for the money first. Second thing you would be looking for is probably for the welfare of your employees in a pandemic. The morale of the employees is important, protection of the employees. So that's something that we did also. We did a lot of work for that. Thirdly, what we did was we responded is our factory, our production lines. They cannot be stopped because that I managed to implement our existing systems, and that we were able to add extra lines and extra people, recruit extra, who is there, who is not there, who got sick or who didn't get sick. systems run by themselves. Okay, so once you have systems in place, that's I think one of the most important things to be resilient and to be able to survive in a pandemic or crisis. I learned about systems when I was in Wendy's Hamburgers. It didn't matter what happened, the store would open at a certain time, and there was always hamburgers. So the same thing with Sari Roti. It's no different. Systems have to be in place. And then also during a pandemic, as much as we are busy quarantining and sanitizing hands and taking care of employees, taking care of the factory, we also have to understand the consumer. What does the consumer want at this time, particularly for our industry? What is our, where will the consumer be? Will they be at home? Will they be still going partly to the office? How do we cater to them that they are able still to get our bread? So we have to understand the consumer lifestyle, the consumer preference, because such things change during a pandemic. And you don't have very much time to do, to change systems. So you almost have to respond, using your existing systems. The other thing is, that I will always look at crisis brings opportunities. I would say there's always an opportunity in every crisis, but it's identifying those opportunities. And there were a lot of opportunities for us to be, we had different distribution channels that we were able to do. We focused on online, e-commerce. We had more people looking for jobs, hence we were able to recruit more hawkers for that. So that way, it was opportunity for us to extend our general trade distribution. The other one is what the pandemic brings is also, we have to not only be in the present situation and trying to, stop fires, but we also have to plan ahead. Okay, what next? What next? We always have to be one step ahead. So we were able to, in April, actually to see, okay, post-lockdown, what is going to happen? Unfortunately, that isn't going to be the case. As time went by, there is probably not going to be a post-lockdown till 2021. That's how we see it. So there's probably going to be what you call a easing of the lockdown, but the COVID-19 isn't going to go away like magic. So therefore, we had to plan ahead. So what do we do when the consumers start to go, back to the office? And what are their spending patterns? What are the purchasing power? Then, our contribution, actually, we were able to contribute to the society by giving our bread away to the poor, the needy, the medical workers. And there were a lot out there that needed bread. A lot of them could not go home or have even a hot meal. Bread was the fastest way they could, what we call isi perut, yeah. So it was a very, very, very good that we were able to have enough supply to be able to give to them. So I think looking through all this, I really thank that my team, my senior management team, and all the employees at Sari Roti, we were able to keep their morale up because a lot of them were living in fear. They were worried their families would get sick, and the mortality rate kept going up. So, but we were able to keep up their morale, and a lot of them, maintained a very positive attitude, which really helped in a company. I would say that, those are the things that I did for Sari Roti, that my team really and me, it's not just me alone, it's all of us, my team and I, what we did for the, to survive, the pandemic. And now that we are on the road to recovery, okay, so, we have to bring in a lot of, we have to put in a lot of different measures. Because, for example, certain quarantines don't have to be implemented anymore, and the consumers are getting back. So your sales team. I mean, there's a lot that has to be done, but we have to plan ahead. We are already planning ahead till the end of the year. So I would say, with all this, the recovery is going to be slow, but it doesn't mean that there's no opportunities. And that's my 7 minutes.
Thank you very much, Ibu Wendy, for a fascinating presentation. I'm particularly impressed by the awareness factor that you were aware from the very beginning, and apparently your the international focus of your business and yourself has helped that. If you don't mind, there's so many questions over here. We really cannot get to every one of them, but there are a number that are specifically directed to you. So if I can just go down some of the few that are very interesting, but I'd like to start off actually with quite a difficult question, and which is actually for all the panelists. But I think you can take first crack at it. And this comes from Dr. Brett Mattis from PT Numada, and he says, "Do you think that a 5 to 10-year forward look for the Indonesian economy and Indonesian society in June 2020 is significantly different from the same forward look if it had been conducted in January 2020? In what way? The business strategies and so on." So just basically, COVID happened. Before that, what was the outlook, your perception of what the business is doing, and is it drastically changed? People talk about the new normal. What is it? What's forward looking?
Thank you, Pa. Okay, pre-COVID, I think it's a no-brainer. Indonesia was doing very well. We had a very good GDP growth in Q1. Okay, so I believe that, and I think I believe that we were even looking at higher than 5%, 6% growth pre-COVID. COVID hit the world. We were a little. I believe Indonesia was a little bit slow, but I also understand the reasons, because it is. I look at Indonesia like a Titanic. It is not easy to maneuver. Okay, unlike Singapore or any of the smaller nations. Okay, they are easier to maneuver. Indonesia, 280 million people, is very hard to maneuver. So when it hit, we had to react. The government had to react. And we are in a better situation today than we were in the 1998 crisis, because our reserves are better. The management of the banking system is a lot better. So therefore, I believe that we will stay out of this faster. It's not going to take a long time. However, you're not going to see, I think, the end of the fog. The fog isn't going to clear until 2021 at least. Indonesia is a country with so many opportunities. I call it dividend demographics. It has the people. For me, especially when in the consumer industry, I do believe that Indonesia will continue to grow in the consumer industry. And people need to eat, whether it's basics or fast food or anything. And currently the purchasing power is a bit lower because of the COVID-19. However, it's going to go back up, and I don't think it's going to be 5 to 10 years forward. I believe 2021 you will already start to recover, and Indonesia will recover faster because it's got all the systems in place, much better. It's much better equipped than when it was in 1998, I would say.
Okay. Well, thank you for that very optimistic outlook. You mentioned in your talk employee morale, and Arifani Rahma Putri from PTPP was asking what were the considerations, if any, on laying off employees, and what would be the strategy of resilience in that type of strategy?
I believe we never had to lay off. In fact, we were hiring. Okay, so our industry is a little bit different. Yes, we never had to lay off. We were actually hiring, and we were able to recruit more people because we had to make up for the production to meet the demand. However, I do believe that even in that kind of situation, we have to keep up the employee morale, only because they were worried at one time. My neighbor just got fired. Am I going to be the next one? Or my neighbor just got COVID. What happens if I and my family get COVID? Who's going to take care of us? You see, is our medical insurance going to cover this? So there are a lot of these questions coming from the employees. So we have to assure them that no matter what happens, we are here. We'll take care, and we have insurance for all our employees. So we'll take care of them, okay? But they also have to do their part. That they have to prevent from getting COVID by sanitizing and personal hygiene and all that. But we didn't have to to lay off. But from what I see, that their fear and the fear of being laid off and what will happen to them, I think we had to tackle that one. But then when they saw us recruit more people and they knew that the demand was up, they were very assured that they would keep their jobs.
All right. In fact, that was another question, that in terms of recruitment, because how did that, what type of recruitment that you did in this kind of situation that you needed to do? What specifically recruitment policies did you see, opportunities for adding people as opposed to laying off?
Well, because, for example, people are working from home now. Okay, there's no more people working out. There's no one on the street. They're all locking themselves in. They don't want to go out and buy. So you bring bread to them. I need people to deliver that to them. So I need to hire hawkers. I need to hire couriers. And they're now ordering more online. So which means we need couriers. So those are recruitment. We need to get the bread to them because they don't want to go out. So that's a heavy recruitment. Then we had to activate activate an extra line in some of the factories. So you need more workers because some of the lines were only doing 2 shifts. So if you need to move it to 3 shifts, where are you going to get the extra people? Also, we had to be very careful in overworking one shift, because if you overwork one shift, they might get tired and sick. So you don't want that to happen. So we recruited also for our production. So those 2, production and sales, is where we recruited a lot of people.
All right. Well, following on that, and this is the last question, Wendy, that many people have asked this, and we're thinking about now you say post 2021. What kind of strategy are you looking at for that kind of future?
Okay. Strategy will still, the strategy when the economy picks up, we will have to look into a new consumer. It's going to be a new consumer and a new normal. We are in a new normal now, but it's going to be a different new normal in 2021. That's why it's important for companies to adapt to that and to anticipate what's going to happen when everything is going to look better. COVID is being, let's say they have a, you have a, not a vaccine, what do you call it? You have a drug that can cure it, okay? Vaccine, I think will take another 2 years. But you have a drug that can cure it. Everything goes back to a new normal. The consumer is already used to working from home, is used to having things at their delivered to them. So I think e-commerce will do very well. So I believe that online e-commerce will do very well. In terms of companies' efficiencies, I think we will get more efficient. Because at this time of COVID pandemic, we are able to see, okay, look, we managed to do this. We don't need this anymore. We don't need that anymore. So by that time, I would say that new normal is companies will learn to be more efficient. They will know who is the type of consumer. As I said, it's a new type of consumer. It's a new world that's going to be, I'm not quite sure if they're going to reduce the capacity of the restaurants and the malls and all that. They may still do that, but it's not going to be like before where, a lot of people are huddled together, like before, you squash them like a sandwich. So it's not going to happen. So it's going to be somewhere between now social distancing and maybe, the squashing. So it's probably, but it's different. You're going to have less people, being put in a stadium, less people put in a cinema.
So a real social transformation. All right. Well, thank you so much, Wendy. I was just wondering, there's so many questions here that, of course, we don't have time for. But perhaps, if you don't mind, we might send some of those questions, perhaps, so that you can answer them, and we can send them to the people after this webinar.
I would be pleased to do that, because if they have questions, they need to have them
Yes,
answered.
and they're directed specifically to you. So there's many people who would be disappointed because I haven't had the time to ask you those questions. So I thank you very much for that offer, and we look forward to hearing from you again and to meeting you again at IPMI.
I look forward to that too, and thank you for hosting this, and thank you all.
Good, thank you very much, Wendy. So shall we go to the next our next panelist, who is Mr. Stephen C. Lee, the CEO of PT Sari Melati Kencana Pizza Hut, who he has been here for a year now, but previously he was the CEO of Pizza Hut in Korea with many experiences in multinational companies previously, such as Kraft Foods, Pepsi Cola, and then on to Pizza Hut. He is a graduate of the University of Chicago, Booth School of Business, one of the top business schools. So we look forward to hearing your presentation, Mr. Stephen Lee. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Bakteri. As Ibu Wendy had mentioned, it is really a privilege and an honor to be able to speak in front of all of you in front of IPMI. And thank you, Pak Owen, for the invitation. So I think Ibu Wendy covered quite a few things that I wanted to talk about, but I'll put it in a framework that might be a little bit easier to follow. And it's really 4 things for us. And a lot of it really is grounded in our values. And it's really all about the employees. It's about taking care of the customers, the community, and our company. So when all of this started, to Ibu Wendy's point, I think one of the things as a leader is to ensure you are aware of what's going on, not just within your own company, but your competitive set in the country that you're in, and also within the world. And for us, fortunately, we have restaurants all over the world. Over 100 countries. So we do see what's happening in many of these countries, and we got a sneak peek in some of these areas where they were being hit pretty hard, and it looked very much like at some point this was unavoidable. This was going to come to Indonesia, and we needed to be prepared. So as a leader who has been through certainly this is unprecedented. We've never gone through anything like this, but I've gone through a lot of other crises before. And as soon as something like this hits, the first thing you want to think about is cash. And you want to always think about a situation where you hope for the best, but you plan for the worst. So one of the first things I also did was to ensure that we went to all of the places that we could to ensure that we had facilities to make sure that we were okay with cash for a longer period. And the reason why is the four things that I talked about. One was the employees. As this started, the commitment from myself and the board of directors here was to ensure that we do everything possible. We couldn't guarantee it, but we do everything possible to ensure that we keep all of our contract and permanent employees. So I'm very happy and proud to say that we have not furloughed any contract and permanent employees to date, and we'll continue to do everything possible to ensure that we do that. We'll have to see the impact of this moving forward, but we will continue to do everything that we possibly can to ensure that we maintain that commitment to our employees. In addition to that, obviously, all the things that Wendy talked about, we already as a brand, Pizza Hut as a brand is a part of Yum, and Yum as a company already has some very, very stringent guidelines when it comes to cleaning, food safety. So we had much of that thankfully in place already, but obviously we had to double down. We had to make sure that we did all the things in addition to what we would normally do to ensure that our employees who are on the front line felt very, very safe while they were working. And it's not just for them, but it's also for the customers and making sure that they had a perception that they were walking in or coming into contact in some cases with people who they felt very, very comfortable with. So, you know, we made sure that we did everything that we could from the employee perspective. The other is the customer. And from the customer perspective, again, I think we wanted to make sure that we have been a trusted brand for many, many years, 36 years now in Indonesia. And we wanted to ensure that we continue that trust level and the perception that we will continue to maintain that trust and be a company that does the right thing. So we made sure that we put out in social media a video that talked about all the things that we were doing to ensure that we were taking additional steps to maintain our employee safety and therefore the customer safety, and reinforce all the things that we did with our normal food safety standards as well, so that people felt comfortable when they were ready in whatever channel they wanted to interact with us. One of the innovations that came out of this, and I think even Wendy talked about this as well. We talk a lot about never wasting a good crisis, right? Yes, this is a very, very tough situation for everybody, but there are opportunities that come out of this, and you need to find out what those opportunities are. And one of them was actually a concept that was introduced and innovated out of our China market, which was contactless delivery. I think you hear that a lot from a lot of different brands that talk about contactless delivery. But it was actually started in China at Pizza Hut, and is very quickly adopted in our markets around the world and other brands around the world as well. So we'll continue to look for opportunities where we can ensure that we come up with innovations that make people feel safe as they're interacting with us. And the other one is community. And again, this is based on our values, but we always believe that we need to give back to our community. And there's quite a few programs that we work on. I won't get into a lot of the detail on right now, but I'm proud to say that with what was going on initially from February all the way through April, we were able to donate over 1,200 pizzas to 14 hospitals in Jakarta, 17 hospitals in major cities, 42 other facilities that were doing tests, to all the frontline folks who were out there, risking their safety by helping others. So we wanted to make sure that we were out there doing the right thing. And lastly, and not necessarily least, because we have to make sure that the company continues to stay stable and continues to prepare itself for the future. We wanted to make sure that we understood what we wanted to do from the company strategy perspective. As I said, all the things that I just talked about previously required us to ensure that we had a lot of cash. So we made sure that we had access to a lot of that. But when you talk about strategy currently in this current situation and beyond, that beyond is near in, midterm, and long term, all of the strategies that we came up with last year, I think every large company has a process where they come up with a strategic plan for the following year and maybe 3 years out. We were no different. We had a very good plan. We started with that in the beginning of the year. And when this hit, obviously all of that is worthless at this point. We had to throw all of that away. But we also had to ensure that we made sure that we stayed very nimble throughout all of this. And we made sure that the areas that we trade in and what's actually going on with the different trends, that we were prepared to take advantage as much as we possibly could. And an example of that is, I think when people think about Pizza Hut in Indonesia, they think about mostly the dine-in experience. People go to the restaurant and experience our food and our service, which is great. And that's a very significant portion of our business. But over the years, what we've been doing is we've been working on 2 other channels. We've been working on the takeaway channel, where customers come into our outlets and are able to order and take away our products. And the other is delivery, both from us as well as our aggregator partners. So we made sure that as this hit, we knew that the impact was going to be much bigger on dine-in, and it still is. And we made sure that we wanted to double down on all the things that we could do in the other channels where we could take advantage. So when you talked about digital, and digital is something obviously that it's not new to anyone in this country, especially considering everyone orders through Gojek and Grab. But I think companies realized and recognized how important this initiative is now. I think a lot of companies talk about, well, the initiatives that you had maybe several years out for digital and technology has really been compressed into a couple of months now. So we're doubling down on this. We're disproportionately investing in this area. We already were in a path to get there, but I think this is one area that we need to make sure when we come out that we take advantage of. So, you know, from our perspective, those are sort of the, you know, from a framework perspective, grounded in our values, the 4 areas that we were really able to focus on. And I'm really proud of our team to have really stayed so resilient through all of this, with all of the changes and all of the concerns around what's going to happen in the near and midterm future. Our team has just been so resilient and so incredible through all of this. And I truly believe that we are going to be a brand and a business coming out of this that's going to be much stronger. The question around, you know, whether this is going to get better in a year, 6 months, you know, to me, again, I'm always going to take the philosophy of hope for the best, but plan for the worst. For us, I think we're going to plan for this to potentially be a real impact throughout the balance of this year, but also continue to find opportunities where we can to disproportionately find areas where we can actually find more sales opportunities where we didn't in the future. Again, always grounded in our values, always doing the right thing for our employees and our customers and the community.
Thank you very much, Stephen. We'll go on to Roy Sembel, and then you'll stick around because we have the questions for both of you. But I can't resist asking one question about what's the difference between Pizza Hut in Korea and Pizza Hut here?
There are a lot of similarities actually, but I guess the biggest difference would be that business had transitioned many years ago from a dine-in focused business to more of what we call HMR or home meal replacement. So it's very much more delivery and takeaway based as opposed to the business here.
So they didn't have to change too much then.
Yeah, in fact, many of those markets actually did very, very well during this period because delivery skyrocketed and did very, very well during this period.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, Pak Roy, if you're ready, Pak Roy Sembel, our professor, distinguished professor of finance, is fully recovered. So this is very relevant to our theme, fully recovered from COVID-19 in New York. And he's supposed to be coming back pretty soon. But I think many of us know that Pa Roy is not only a professor, but he's also a businessman and an entrepreneur, and formerly from working in McKinsey. He is a PhD from University of Pittsburgh in America. And well, a lot of questions are revolving around finance in COVID time. Pak Roy, can you, in your very early time in New York, can you do start your presentation? Pak Roy? Aldi, is Pak Roy's...
now already unmuted.
All right, there you are. Well, you're in IPMI already.
Okay, good morning from New York.
Well, you're at IPMI right now.
Yes, I am at IPMI. The background is IPMI. Yeah.
All right, go ahead, Pak Roy.
Yeah, I was asked to talk about the prospect of the food industry and also about, of course, the topic is about resiliency. Yeah. Now, talking about the prospect of the current situation of the food industry, I will give you some numbers about the macroeconomics related to the Indonesian economy and also the food industry. Well, food industry is really part of the consumer's goods. Yeah, Well, in consumer goods, usually overall consumer goods is a defensive industry compared to the cyclical. Cyclical is very affected by the movement of the economy, yeah. But defensive usually not really affected directly and significantly. However, within the consumer group, there is a consumer group that is defensive, which is food and beverage usually. And then there is a consumer good that is not really defensive. For example, the retail, etc., that get directly affected by the fluctuation of the economy. Even in the food and beverage industry, there are two sides of the possibility. That is the industri makanan minuman, that is the pengolahannya, the processing, and then the retail related to the restaurant, which usually suffer more compared to the upstream part of the food, because everyone still have to eat. However, the downstream part will depend on the situation of the economy. Yeah? Now, talking about the growth and the portion for of the GDP, actually the industri akomodasi makanan dan minuman from the BPS data, Badan Pusat Statistik, contribute around almost 3% of the total GDP of Indonesia. The total GDP of Indonesia last year was about almost 16 trillion rupiah. Yeah. So 3% is around 500 trillion rupiah. Yeah, that's akomodasi makanan dan minuman. However, the akomodasi part is going down much more compared to the makanan dan minuman, yeah, food and beverage. Yeah. That's the current situation. Now, the prediction in the future, because makanan minuman, especially in the upstream part and midstream part, still relatively resilient compared to the downstream part. So the impact of the COVID crisis mostly will be affected by the downstream part. Yeah? So the downstream part need to be able to, well, to increase their capacity building in order to be able to be resilient and recover in the COVID crisis. Yeah. Well, I would like to give my definition of resilience. Yeah, because our topic is about resilience. Now, there are plenty of definition, conceptual definition. If you check some books as well as some other article, but I like the definition of resilience as follows. Yeah, resilience is the ability to recharge and recover quickly after a setback. So it is recharge and recover, and quickly. Not just endure, but recharge and recover quickly after a setback. Yeah? So how can a company or business become resilient? There are at least 7 parts of the resiliency concept. Yeah? The first one is the resiliency of the human capital. Yeah? Whether they have the motivation, greed, and then growth mindset, something like that, and also the culture of the company. Yeah? And then the second part is the organizational resiliency. Is the organization ready to face the crisis? Can they recharge quickly so that they can recover? Yeah? And then the third part is all the infrastructure, resiliency of the infrastructure. Is the infrastructure agile enough to adapt to the current situation of crisis after the setback? That will affect also the ability to recharge and recover overall. And then the next one is the business resiliency, meaning that the agility of the business, of the product, of the services, can they adapt, can they adjust, can they modify quickly, that is recharge and recover quickly in terms of crisis. Yeah? And also about the risk governance. Now, this is overall the corporation. This is about risk governance. Is the company has a good quality of the risk governance, yeah, in terms of all the mechanism, formal mechanism, as well as the content and the substance of the risk governance. Yeah. Now, talking about risk governance, later Pak Irwan Hapsah is the pakarnya. Halo Pak Irwan, apa kabar? Yeah. And also talking about future strategy, how they can adapt to the new situation by finding a new business model. Well, not completely new, of course, some existing still applicable, but because of this new normal, there should be some other addition or modification to face the new situation, new customer behavior, new way of doing business, things like that. Yeah? And last but not least, the overall company need to be ready to keep on adjusting their path, becoming agile, uh, quick, agile, and cepat, lincah, dan gesit katanya gitu ya in bahasa Indonesia. Nah, those are the quality for a company to be resilience. And that is, again, the definition is the ability to recharge and recover quickly after a setback. Well, I think I've talked already more than my share of more than my share of time. So after this, it's better to have the question and answer. Back to Pak Dery Habir.
Thank you, Pak Roy, and you did not go over time, so thank you very much. Just you are a professor, and you
Yes.
gave the definitions of resilience. What grade would you give to Sari Roti and to Pizza Hut?
Well, for Sari Roti, well, I like the product anyway. Well, after listening to the presentation of Miss Wendy and presentation of Pak Stephen, well, they are good. They are well prepared. Yes, of course, the shock is very severe, but I believe that they can recharge and recover quickly. Yeah. Well, in terms of the overall, for example, in terms of overall financial performance, yes, this quarter and quarter one and quarter two, there will be some setbacks. Yeah. And hopefully after listening to their preparation and their plan to recover, to recharge and recover, so hopefully in quarter three and quarter four, they can recover, recharge and recover. And hopefully not only the two companies, but the overall industry as well as the Indonesian economy. So the grade between 0 and 10, maybe I give 7.5 to 8. That is
all right. Thank
B
you.
plus, almost A minus.
That's right. Okay. Thank you very much. We should get Stephen's and Wendy's reaction to their grade. All right. Thank you very much. I'd like to get to a question from and this is from your neck of the woods, Pak Roy, from Hendra Rudolf Warau from Apindo, and he's wondering what sources of finance that one can get other than from the central bank. What are the prospects of getting from the province, kabupaten, kota, foreign government, or private sector in this COVID period?
Well, regarding the alternative sources of finance, well, the first one is not only the alternative, but even the existing, you need to be able to manage that. Yeah. For example, you need to be able to find source of finance that will reduce your cash flow burden. Yeah. For example, if your finance is based on the investment loan, usually you have to pay also the principal as well as the interest. Yeah. But if it is in terms of the working capital loan, you only pay the interest for a while, although later on you will have to pay the principal. That will reduce significantly your burden for the cash flow. Yeah. The next one, of course, the type of kind of financing that is based on profit sharing instead of the fixed cost payment, yeah, fixed cost installment. Yeah. That will also reduce your temporary cash flow burden. And in addition to the funding, you need to be able also to activate many different possibilities to get the cash inflow. For example, how you manage the account receivable, how you manage the inventory. Are you being efficient in your inventory, because it will eat a lot of your cash, yeah, temporarily. In this kind of the situation, you should be able to manage it much more efficiently. Yeah? And there are other several possibilities to get, for example, cooperation with your supplier, and then renegotiation with all the parties that give you loan, yeah, so that it will reduce the burden of the cash flow. Well, the first step in this situation is stop the bleeding. What is the bleeding in the business? That's it, the cash flow. Yeah, you have to be able to manage the cash flow in order to survive. Then after you become more stable, then you can recharge and recover after you restructure all the business, new business model, so that you can earn cash inflow better than before. Yeah. Well, that's my short answer to the question.
But just to follow up on that, because the question was, what are the alternative sources of funding? Are they available at this time from the regional governments, private sector, and so on?
Yes, actually, the government already allocate about almost more than 500 trillion rupiah, yeah, for many different kind of incentives, especially for the UMKM, that is the small, micro, and medium enterprises, yeah, through the banks as well as through other channels. For example, departmental budget, yeah, that is allocated for the technical department, yeah, for each of the sector, for example, yeah. That can be accessed if you know the contact, yeah, in each of the department, and then if you know the requirement for that, yeah. That is especially for the small, medium, and micro enterprises. But also for the big companies, for the strategic industries, of course, the government already announced that they will rescue some strategic industries, the big companies in Indonesia, so that all the supply chain behind them and after them, then all the overall the value chain will also be will also survive because of the government help the core, the hub, so that all the other network of the hub will also survive because of that injection, the capital injection and the cash flow injection to the core of the network. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I'm glad Stephen is still here. A specific question to Stephen from Rafki of LPPOM, MUI. What is the most, it's related to what you were talking about, but I think one thing to be more specific about, what was the most daunting challenge, solution that your team came up with overcoming the lockdown, restrictions and low consumer demand?
Yeah. So I think from a risk perspective, one of the most daunting ones was that we needed to make sure that we had a plan in place in the event that we had an issue with an employee potentially contracting COVID, or a customer potentially having been at the outlet or coming into contact with one of our employees getting COVID. That's one of the more daunting ones, and we made sure that we had a crisis planning contingency plan all around it and what we would do in a scenario such as it. And we made sure, again, this is a part of a lot of the things that we were doing as a benefit for our employees, but we created a fund in the event that our employees got into a situation and they had to get hospitalized and there was a lot of funds that were required that they couldn't afford. We wanted to make sure that we wanted to have that available. As far as, from the business strategy perspective, the most daunting was that, when the PSBB started, the requirement was that all of our dine-in was shut down.
Yep.
So, a vast portion of our business, we could not only could we not generate revenue out of it, we committed to keeping all of our employees. So we had to figure out a way to continue to support all of these people. And despite the fact that we're going after and trying to negotiate a lot of the rents, those don't go away. That's still going to be there. So again, I think a lot of it was One, ensuring that we had as much of a pipeline and an access to cash as possible. We were doing all the things internally to ensure that we go after austerity programs, discounts when it comes to rent, deferrals on any kind of payments that we had to pay to our franchisor and or to our other suppliers. So we went after a lot of those non-interest related cash items first, and then we went after potentially getting working capital and or other investments. So those were the biggest for us, and quite honestly, we didn't know because there was extension after extension after extension on the PSBB. Initially, we thought, well, maybe this could be 4 weeks to 6 weeks. Ended up being almost 10 weeks, and it also obviously depends by regency, and each regency, each city is also conforming to different guidelines and the new normal guidelines. And all of this hit during one of the biggest business periods for us, especially in dine-in, which is Ramadan and Lebaran. So for us, that was also very, very daunting. But again, I think, kudos to our team and the resilience that we had to find all the different opportunities in takeaway and delivery, where we disproportionately made up a lot of those losses.
All right, just continuing, I just noticed a question from Mustafa Jatim, who's head of our foundation, and he was wondering whether you would be going away I guess in the same way that Korea did a long time ago. Are you going to go away from the dining in concept and getting into something entirely different now that we've confronted this crisis?
Yeah, I get this question a lot, and I think from my perspective, we have a 519 assets, and more than half of them are very much dine-in based. So even if we wanted to tomorrow, we couldn't pivot immediately because of the assets and physical assets in place today. But quite honestly, I don't want to jump the gun. I do recognize that in the interim and maybe in the short and midterm, that this channel is going to continue to find adversity. But we'll find opportunities in the other two channels, and we'll see where the behavior lands. I think even when he talked about new consumer, I'm not sure the consumers are any new than they were. I think the behavior is going to be a lot different. If they continue to support delivery and takeaway much more than dine-in, then we'll continue to modify our asset base to be more reflective of what they're looking for. But I certainly don't want to give up on it. I think that's still a very big, important part of our business and what it represents from the experience of coming to Pizza Hut as a restaurant and the product benefits that it gives from a perception perspective are things that I certainly don't want to give up unless there's a straight push from the consumer's trend perspective to go there.
All right. The next question is for both of you, but Stephen can answer it first. And this is related to, I noticed Pa Emil Arifin was asking this in terms of why is it that certainly from Ibu Wendy's presentation, that the baking industry seems to be doing better than others during this period. Is it basically because everybody needs to eat, or what are the factors about that, and why is it so different from other industries that are really going under?
Yeah, I can't speak for Ibu Wendy's business, but I think by and large, you see a huge consumer shift from people buying out a lot and eating home. And at home, there are a lot of things that you can cook, and there are a lot of things you cannot cook. For us, thankfully, it's not a product that you can cook very easily at home. So I think it lends itself very well to people still wanting to benefit from coming to us because we were still open, either takeaway or having it delivered. So our product, obviously we have a variety of product, but our main product is pizza and pasta, and those are things that typically are things that aren't cooked very easily at home, at least to the quality that that people are probably used to expecting.
Okay. Well, Pak Roy, could you have
Yeah.
a similar or different perspective on that?
So in terms of better performance or worse performance, it depends on first the product quality and then also the brand name recognition and also the strategy to serve customer differently in terms of this crisis. Yeah, those are, I believe, the main factors that distinguish the better performers versus the worst performers. Yeah.
All right, here's a question that a lot of people raised with regard to the smaller industry. This is from Salsabila Ahira Hamida from IPB, your alma mater, Pak Roy.
Okay.
And he wants to ask all the panelists, what would be your advice to small business owners that make up a very large proportion of Indonesia to navigate their way out of this possibly very large amount of loss during this pandemic?
Okay, for the first and short-term period, try to find some pivoting way, meaning that try to find many possibility of getting income from many different sources, not the traditional one. Yeah, any brainstorming that can reach to good ideas, you have to try it. Yeah, and also don't forget to take advantage of your current networking. Yeah, because usually small and medium enterprise, they survive because of their network. Yeah, take advantage of the solid network, the solid customer that you have during this situation, and also try to find opportunities to get subsidies, finding incentive from the government, from the local government as well as the central government. Yeah, because they have plenty of incentive. However, you need to know the channel. Yeah, that way you will save the cash flow and then you get new income. And then in the long run, of course, you have to think about those things that I mentioned before. Yeah? The resiliency of the human capital, resiliency of the organization, etc., etc. Yeah, but that will be for the medium term and the long term. Yeah.
Okay, now Pizza Hut has a lot of small business owners that are dependent in the supply chain on Pizza Hut and other companies. Stephen, could you speak to that?
You mean our suppliers, or?
Yeah, well, the small business community that are involved related to your business. How should they react to this crisis, and what have you done with them?
So I'm hoping I'm understanding the question correctly. For us, our business is fully owned and operated by us. So we
That's
don't
right.
have sub-franchisees. That's different in some other markets where they do have sub-franchisees. So the affiliation for us is mostly on the supplier side.
That's right. I think that's what the question is about.
All right. So from that perspective, I think we want to make sure that, look, partnerships don't go away in an instant, and partnerships don't go away just because the situation is bad. I think we want to make sure that we do the right thing to ensure that we continue to honor all of the agreements that we have with our partners, both by contract, but also for people who've been with us for a very long period of time, recognizing what their situation is and ensuring that we don't put them in a situation where they could potentially, be in financial burden or, in distress to a point where they have to file Chapter 11 or anything like that. So, because obviously we think about all the issues that we have from our employees' perspective, but they do as well. And we want to make sure that we support them as much as we possibly can. If we have the opportunity to find funding and cash from other sources, we certainly want to support these small businesses first.
Thank you very much. we're getting out of time, so I'll kind of wrap up, but also tell our participants what they might expect ahead. First of all, thank you to Stephen Lee, to Roy Sembel, and to Ibu Wendy Yap for participating. I will not do a wrap up, but I will be, first of all, I'm definitely impressed by the resilience of both of your companies. But I'm reminded of the old saying of that there are people who make things happen. There are people who watch things happen, and there are people who say, what happened, right? I think a lot of people in the pandemic time are, including probably myself, what happened, right? Many others are observing. But I think people like yourself, Stephen, your company, as well as Ibu Wendy and her company, people like Paroy, who is doing all kinds of things all over the place, they make things happen. And I think this is the message that I hope that people that are listening can take in terms of being proactive and doing what they can do in this particular pandemic crisis and the possible transformation of what we are all going through. We are now at the end in terms of time because we're getting into the Maghrib period. Aldi, do you have any administration? Well, before I go, what I'd like to say is because we had literally hundreds of questions, and just as I asked Ibu Wendy, perhaps hopefully Stephen and Pragoy will be willing to answer those, because we will want to be doing a proceedings of what we have gone through. It's very good presentations, and I think our participants would like to have what we have come up with today. So thank you again. And Pa Aldi, can you take this away?
Okay, sorry about that. I couldn't unmute. Yes, thank you very much, Pak Dery, for a very active and informative session. Thank you very much, all participants, especially Pak Stephen, Ibu Wendy, Prof. Roy, for coming tonight and talking to us and informing us and engaging us all. We will have some more talks, everyone, some more CEO talks, and please just watch out in your emails and come often to our Facebook page, our Instagram page. So look for IPMI and do tell us what you think and what you want to hear some more from IPMI. And hopefully we will be able to fulfill your needs. And before I say goodbye, please stay healthy, stay safe, and let's see each other in this new normal some other time. Thank you.
Thank you, Baldi.
Thank you very much.
Good night.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Thank you.
Shall we take a picture for before we all leave?
Yeah, why not?
Yes. Pak Ihwan or Fajri, can you take the picture, please? Fajri?
Of all 300, 400, 500 people?
Of all 12 pages. And please, please put in your videos on. That's right. I see you all. Great. Thank you.
Well, 100 participants already left. So
Right.
just
And we
200.
still have 260. And this is recorded, so we have most everyone here. Thank you
Right.
very much, everyone.
Good then?
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Village.
Bye.
Gio, anak magang itu Joy. Ya. Ya Bu, buka-buka.